Hey everyone, Rob here from Gunfather Milsim, and this is the Arcturus AK105, newest AK I own, and I couldn't be more impressed with it. Now, for those of you that don't know, I am a huge fan of airsoft AKs. As much as I enjoy fielding an M4 and shooting an M4, at the end of the day, for me, it just feels like work, because that's what I use at work literally all the time. And when I'm not at work, I'm having fun, recreation, I like using something a little bit different, and I love shooting AKs. It goes for real steel too. I've owned several real steel AKs in my time, and that's one of the reasons I like this gun so much, because the fit finish, the externals, the build quality is closer to a real steel AK than it is to an airsoft gun. So for starters, let's talk about what the Arcturus AK105 came with in the box. Delivered with an orange flash hider on it, plastic flash hider. That's the law in the US. Import law is what it is. However, most airsoft companies glue this on. Arcturus did not. Thank you very much, Arcturus. Easy to remove, a single grub screw, and then in the box is this really cool steel flash hider. Looks badass, heavy, high quality, and we just screwed that on. Also came with two magazines, a mid cap and a high cap. They are AK-74 style. Near as I can tell, they both feed very well. Strange, kind of cool thing is that the mid cap, if you open it up, there's a setting on the side of the magazine that you can switch it from a mid cap to a real cap, so it only holds 30. I don't know why anybody would want to do that, but it's there if you want to do it. It's kind of a nice touch. It's an interesting touch. The gun also comes with an M-LOK hand stop. I would probably not ever use this. It's too small, but it's kind of cool if that's interests you. Additionally, Arcturus patch, nice touch, pretty high quality PVC patch. And it also came with this paperwork from Arcturus showing they tested it and what it fired with .2s. This one says 412 to 416. I'm assuming the hop-up was off when they did this, because the testing that I did with the hop-up on was ±1. This is about ±2. So I've had some pretty good luck with the actual performance on a chrono with it. So now let's talk about the actual externals of the gun and the build quality. Now, I bought this gun from Evike for $290. On their website, they call this the carbine model. I like it. It's a good length that I like to use when I'm playing outdoor games. This gun's externals are phenomenal, and they just, once I held this gun, I knew my AK1 was toast, and I was never going to look at it again, because this is just such a higher quality build in general. For starters, the receiver is made out of stamped steel, just like a real AK. Magnet sticks to it. In fact, a lot of stuff on this gun is steel. The dust cover is steel. The front sight block is steel. As stated earlier, the compensator is steel. The rail system is aluminum, comes as no surprise because it's a rail system. And they were trying to save weight and probably some production costs, which is fine. Lots of real firearms have aluminum rail systems. And the stock tube is also aluminum, so that's not going to stick there. However, everything else is steel. Let's talk about the rail system. It is an M-LOK rail system. Excellent. Key mod is deader than disco. When I see airsoft guns with key mod, it is upsetting, because it seems like airsoft is always 10 years behind the real steel community. Key mod is gone. Okay, no one uses key mod anymore. Everyone has moved on to M-LOK. In fact, traditional rail systems, Picatinny rail like you see on this OCW, they were cool, they had their day, but they're pretty much gone because they're heavy. Everybody's moved on to M-LOK, and the fact that Arcturus comes from the factory with this excellent M-LOK rail system, it's a huge selling point. Obviously, still got Picatinny rail on top here, which is nice. That's where I like having some rail system. If you want to mount an optic up there, you can. Shooter's choice. It's got some nice etching on there, serialized, that's cool. And front sling loop. And this front sling loop is kind of set in the rail, just like real steel AKs are set in the rail. It's a nice point. Most people aren't going to use it. I probably won't use it, but I like that it's there. It looks sharp. Receiver, stamped steel, just like a real AK. Are the rivets as nice as a real steel AK? No, but they're close, and they're definitely a lot closer to the riveting on a real steel AK than they are on airsoft AK, which, you know, basically the riveting on my OCW It's substandard. It's cheap. Works for airsoft, but this is really overbuilt. This riveting they did here. The safety. Not only is it made of steel, it's a Krebs safety. What's a Krebs safety mean? Krebs style means it has this little kind of shelf here that I can put my finger on it. Helps me activate the safety, and it's real tight. Doesn't want to move, real stiff, stays put where it is. That is excellent. And that is how an AK should have that kind of safety, especially a high-end one. On this side, has a rail scope mount. Okay, AK style side scope mount. Excellent. Already threw an RS Regulate scope mount that I have for real steel firearm on this. Fits perfectly, fits real tight, no wobble whatsoever. Excellent. Okay, that is one of the main reasons I bought this gun, is because it had this right here. Grip, Magpul style grip. It's not a Magpul grip, but definitely inspired by it. Excellent. Let's get away from the AK old school Russian, Eastern European grips. Those things are garbage. Gun comes with a rear sling point right here. It's ambidextrous. It's nothing special, but at least it has one. It's very few airsoft AKs that I've seen, especially the older generation, have them. So I like that this one has one. The stock, probably my first gripe. It's good. It's not great. But that can be expected from any airsoft gun. It's a standard M4 stock, so you can put any stock on here. It's a B5 model or inspired by a B5. It works. It's 6th position. It is what it is. The stock tube is actually pretty high quality. Seems like a real steel one. The threading on here, it appears to be similar to a real steel threading. It might even take a real steel stock tube. That's one of the few things I didn't test for you guys. I don't see any reason to put a real steel one on there. It is worth noting that the end is solid, just like a real steel stock tube. So that's going to present a problem if you want to put a battery in the stock. There's some other problems with it that we're going to cover when we get to the internals, but that's the first one. Stock tube barrel, or the stock tube nut, is the castle nut. Appears to be of real steel quality. It's just very well made in all, from front to back. A couple little things I want to cover about the fit and finish. Just little things that you start to notice the more you look at it, and really kind of appreciate the time that went into building this gun and designing this gun. The bolt catch. It's got a pretty stiff spring on it. Obviously not nearly as stiff as real steel, but stiffer than most airsoft guns. You're probably not going to be able to see it, but where this tube here goes in to the gas block, there's actually a hole drilled for that mount, for that tube that holds your bolt catch in place. Really cool, nice bonus, makes everything more solid. Is it necessary? No, but it just shows that they took the time to do it. There's a detent pin right here on the compensator, just like a real steel AK, that holds that compensator in place. Once again, not necessary. It's a detent. It's got a spring in it. It feels well built. It feels solid. It's good stuff. Other stuff, they actually, because it is a steel bodied AK and rust is always a concern, they do what they call it, I'm going to look it up here, the QPQ processed, which is quenched, polished, quenched, kind of a coating on the steel receiver. Now, can I tell you the exact details of how that's done? No. But what does it do? It fights against corrosion, and it makes corrosion less of an issue. Anytime you have a steel gun or steel anything, they're going to rust. So you got to have some sort of treatment on there. Like real firearms are going to have some sort of bluing on it. This has that QPQ process. They stand by it. They like it. It's better than nothing. I don't know how it's going to hold up. I have no idea. But at least they acknowledge that, hey, steel does rust, and we did something for you. So moving on to internals. The internal quality of this gun is excellent. I have not disassembled it. I watched a review by Pheas Airsoft. He did a really good one. So I don't feel the need to take this apart. I don't take apart guns until I have to. Most guns I feel like I have to pretty early because they're just not performing the way I want them to. This one is performing excellent out the box. And the stock parts of the internals are excellent. Real quick, took some notes here. It's got a full steel rack piston. It's got 8mm bearings, copper machine cylinder, and a steel bearing spring guide. all good stuff. No need to upgrade it. So what makes it unique and different from an OCW or from a SIMA? Quick change spring system. You can see it here in the back. Now, my understanding is if you have a folding stock model of this gun, you can fold the stock over and access the spring system without disassembling the gun. Unfortunately, or fortunately, because I wanted this kind of stock, you have to do some disassembly of the gun to get that spring out. You basically have to raise the gearbox out of the gun. Is that big a deal? It's still nice. It's nice to have that quick change spring system. I'm not afraid of working on version 3 gearboxes. I prefer working on them to version 2s. But when you have to put that spring under tension and put the gearbox shell back together, it can be a bit of a bear and feel like you need a third hand. So having that quick change spring gives you the ability to, everything's not under tension, so it's really easy to put back together. So that is a big plus. However, the downside, and this is really the downside of this entire gun, is that because of that quick change spring system, there's no way to wire it to the rear, to the stock. And also, as I showed you earlier, the stock has a solid in the back, so you can't put a battery in there anyway, so that won't work. That really is a huge negative because there's not a ton of space under that top cover, and it really limits the batteries that you can use. This is the traditional battery I use on most of my guns. Not even close, won't fit. It's 1400 mAh. Currently, this is a 1000 mAh 7.4 volt stick battery. This is the only thing I have that'll fit on here. I did order two 11.1s that I believe were 900 mAh. Now is 900 enough to get you through several games? Yeah. Is it enough to get you through a whole day? Probably not, depending on how much you shoot. So how does it sound with this 7.4? Because a lot of people are going to have to use 7.4s due to the restrictions. Well, honestly, sounds kind of anemic. And on full auto, that's shit. Okay, that's not good enough. Now, I don't shoot in full auto. I shoot in semi-auto anyway at most of my games. But it's just, even the trigger response with that 7.4, it's garbage. So now I'm going to throw this 11.1 on here. And you're going to see it just makes it playable. It just sounds better. So with the 11.1, excellent. Full auto, excellent. So that is playable. Oh, got a quick note. While we're here, let me spin up that gearbox so you can see. This gun does have a way to decompress the spring. There's a little, let's see if I can get it in the film. There's a little kind of knob right here that you pull or push up, and it decompresses the spring. Is that cool? Yeah. Is it nice? Yeah, it's a nice feature. ICS has it in a lot of their guns. Is it a make or break? Not really. But it is. It just shows how well thought out this entire design is that they have that. So you are going to be limited on what kind of battery you can use. I'm sure I can get by just fine with the 11.1 900 mAh that I have ordered, but it's just with the 7.4, not going to happen. Additionally, it does have a micro switch trigger, not to be confused with a MOSFET. What's the difference between a micro switch and a MOSFET? Really? I don't know. I think a MOSFET's programmable and a micro switch isn't. I've heard a lot of people complain about the micro switch trigger. I've heard some people say it can burn out from using 11.1. I've heard a lot of people say, no, I've been using 11.1 volt battery for years, and this thing holds up just fine. So I don't know. For my part, I'm going to use 11.1, and if it burns out, I'll upgrade to an internal MOSFET. Now, getting the dust cover back on can be a bit of a bear. Actually, this is take 2 because take 1 took so long I had to edit it out. It just, sometimes it's a bear on a real steel AK as well. You got to line it up just so, and really drop it in there, then it falls into place. That's not a negative. That's a good thing. It shows it's machined well with some sort of tolerances. So, good thing. A few other minor things. There is a block up here next to the hop-up. It's kind of screwed in place. I believe it is to kind of stabilize the hop-up unit and hold it in place better. I'm also told it makes so you can't insert the magazine too far and it assists in loading. I've never had a problem with that, but apparently some people do, and that benefits them. So, I mean, it's a nice touch. You're not going to see that on a Cyma AK. You're not going to see that block right there holding everything in place. So it's a good thing. Okay, quick note on magazines. The magazine it comes with is slightly different than a traditional Cyma AK. Now these fit excellent, lock in very well, they feed very well, as it should. It's a factory magazine for the gun. You would expect that. And you can buy more of them. But these are my PTS magazines, AK-74 style as well, that I've traditionally used in my AK, and I really like these for quality. I did another review. These are very good. But when I first got them, they wouldn't quite sit right in the gun, wouldn't quite, they wouldn't work. And the more I got to look at them, I found the issue was right here. The feed lip was too wide. Here's one that is unmodified, and here's one that's modified. And I got some photos that are going to look better, but you can see that I had to remove not even that much material, maybe, I don't know, millimeter or two. Had to get a file out, file those down. Once I did that, they fed just fine. They're sitting there just fine. They're real tight, and everything works great. So it's not an unsurmountable problem. Just understand you're going to need a file, and you're going to have to file that down to make these magazines fit in the gun, but they will feed fine. Everything works great. Now, as to actual performance of this gun, it's excellent. Is it head and shoulders above everything else in its class? No. It's an AEG, and it's shooting about 400 feet per second with a decent stock hop-up. Am I going to replace the hop-up system? Yes. It comes with a traditional metal slider style hop-up. Looks identical to the Cyma one. I'm going to switch out the stock hop-up rubber and put in a modified gray flat hop. I've been using that on all my guns lately. I imagine once that's installed, it's going to shoot as good or as bad as all my other AEGs, depending on how you look at it. We're in the off season right now. It's January. It's cold outside. There's snow on the ground. In my backyard with limited range, I've observed it does shoot very well. It does shoot very consistent. Did a chrono test. It was plus or minus 1, right around 412, I believe. So very good consistency. Consistency is accuracy in all things, and especially in airsoft. So I suspect this gun is going to perform very well in the field, and I have no reservations about that whatsoever. So that pretty much wraps up my Arcturus AK105 review. In short, it is excellent. This is the standard by which other airsoft AKs should be measured. In my opinion, other airsoft companies pay attention and do likewise. It is excellent. Only minor drawback is that you got to mount the battery under the top cover, which is very limiting on your space. And using a 7.4 volt battery, it's kind of anemic shooting. But other than that, great gun. So that's all I got. Put some comments below if you want to discuss some other things about the gun. And thanks for watching.